Hello and welcome everyone to the presentation of the Season 77 Simulation Basketball Association Entry Draft. We're here to look forward and look through the results of the entry draft of first year players to the professional stage, and we'll be starting off with a lot of exciting young players ready to take their next steps in their career. But before we do start, and by we I mean me and Tomato here.
Hi everyone, happy to be here again.
Yes, indeed. Before we start, we should take a little bit of stock on things. As you can see on the screen already is the entry draft order. We'll be starting with the Pittsburgh Ironmen and moving through picks 2, 3, and 4 by way of Brooklyn, New York, and Houston. And we have Oklahoma City Rampage with 2 picks there already. What are your thoughts on the top of the draft order from the team side here, Tomato?
Well, it's interesting to see Brooklyn so high after I just played there, and we seem to be up top, but I guess the last season has been a change. Houston again, it's been a theme lately
Yes.
while we've been doing these presentations. And it's interesting to see Oklahoma have back-to-back picks near the top again.
Yeah, there was a large-scale talent drain out of Oklahoma City this past off-season, like we sort of maybe alluded to already in the last draft presentation, but yes, everyone knows how their season unfolded so far. Other selections there, you also have the Charlotte Aviators once again in the top 10, and then also the Philadelphia Prowlers only selecting at 10th after their first overall selection last off-season. There's a lot of I guess they were embroiled in heaps of controversy recently as well. So that's not all that surprising about Philadelphia. But are there players in that 8, 9 to 10 range that have caught your eye before the draft?
I think there's some potential there. We have a lot of teams speaking up top who have very clear needs for what they want to get this time, and we have players who kind of don't fit that, or maybe are a bit less high reward initially, but may be built up to a great piece. I've seen a bunch of good-looking point guards in the lower ends of the TPE ladders that I think could be great pickups.
Yeah, and then about of the other prospects, we already know beforehand that there's a lot of unknown and uncertainty going into the draft, with a couple of straight to the draft players who have no experience yet in the developmental league or in the SBA universe in as a whole. But who are your top props for number first overall? Or let's go this way. Who are the top 3 prospects ahead of the draft, in your opinion?
I won't be going controversial this time. I think Yaxabozo and Dio Brando are 2 of the top potential, some of the best potential players to grab this year. They're both very high in TP. They had great seasons in the SBDL, and they're both from player agencies who have shown promise in the case of Schwein, or who are just incredibly good at picking out talent throughout the years, as you can clearly see by the Good Left Undone agency. But I think a nice pick, maybe somewhere lower, would be Jalen Cross, actually, whose build is kind of weird, but I kind of like it.
All right, we'll talk more about Jalen Cross when he'll be picked later in the draft. Well, I guess later could be even 25 seconds from now. But before we do that, we are gonna move on officially with the draft presentation here. and we're gonna take a look at the first overall selection in the season 77 entry draft here. With the first overall selection, the Pittsburgh Ironmen select Roope Niskanen. Well, how beautiful is that to get a native pronunciation on an otherwise scummy Nordic name? Roope Niskanen of the Ponzi GG player agency, a point guard / small forward player, straight to the draft player, and Pittsburgh certainly a place to shine very early. What are your thoughts on this selection for Pittsburgh?
I think Pittsburgh knows what they want. They have they're building around Bonnie McBride. Like that's the big thing here. We've seen this last season when they picked up Miguel Lopez, who is a support type player. And I believe seeing the positions here and just guessing maybe as to what direction Niskanen is going to, that's also what he's gonna grow up to be. And I'm sure the Pittsburgh GM has talked extensively with Rope to know what he's getting with these straight to the draft players.
Yeah, and after the early SBA career experiences of Fonzie, he's proved to be a very clever, very intelligent player builder, and also making the best out of a lot of his careers after Judge Judy early in the, I guess it would be like 2019. So I also believe Robe will prove to be a good selection, and maybe in the long view of things later on we'll look at things different as another, wow, this guy went first overall, but things in the SBA nowadays are a lot more nuanced than you should pick Zion Williamson, as in real life. I don't think it would have been very clever not to select Zion Williamson in the entry draft there. But alright then. Roope Niskanen going to the Pittsburgh Ironmen first overall. Then, before the second overall selection, we have a trade to announce. Arizona first and Charlotte first are heading to Brooklyn, and the Charlotte Aviators are receiving the second overall pick. What's this spell for Brooklyn, in your opinion? Obviously, for Aviators, it's very clear they want to make a pick right now. But what's this for Brooklyn?
I think looking at their squad, it's pretty clear that they just do not want to pick right now. They have a bunch of players in that year 3 to year 5 ratio. If they took a high talent guy now, and that's like the only thing that you would want to take with a second pick, it's high value. You want to get a high value player. They would run into cap problems very quickly. So the aim here, I'm guessing, seems to be postponing that moment with potentially getting probably worse picks, but at least 2 of them next season, and seeing what the crop has to offer then, instead of taking a guy now and inevitably just hitting a wall really, really quickly. And Charlotte has to be happy. They get to jumpstart their build around Thomas Andrich, who is already year 6 by now, so they need to get something going.
Yes, in Charlotte there's maybe proven to be a 2 timelines sort of dilemma soon, but if the 2 timelines are stronger in one direction than the other, it's not as chaotic as we've discussed previously and as the Golden State Warriors might have in real life experienced recently. But let's see the Charlotte Aviators. If you're a acutely perceptive viewer and listener, you might already know what's coming up, but I forgot about these cool screens. Here's we're gonna take more note of these ones later, but is the order after the trade. It's gonna make more sense later. Yes, with the second overall selection. The Charlotte Aviators are selecting Trey Mullins, of course. Trey Mullins of their newly minted general manager Kookmeister's player agency, already at 508 TP, so looking pretty stark right there. Yeah, good season in the SBDL. Do you think this player fits then the whatever mold you proposed there for Charlotte?
I think this pick is more GM taking a GM player over some special fit, because Charlotte already has scorers. They have Thomas Andrich, they have Javon Devon. So this is a third scorer to a team that could really use some utility. But the upside in having your own player be on your team is obviously very special, because you're guaranteed loyalty. You know what you're getting. So it's interesting to see if Trey Mullins will maybe go another direction now that they're in the SBA, or if there'll be some more roster moves coming from Charlotte soon.
Yeah, certainly could be. Yeah, I've also said this a dozen times already, but in terms of GM players, who else can you trust more than yourself? Like, if you're gonna stick around, you'll have one player that you automatically don't need to worry about, other than if you somehow don't trust your skills with the player update page. But then sure, you may have something lacking in the other sort of scouting and player what's it called, evaluation, either way. So it's a good choice to go with your own player for sure, in my opinion. And Charlotte are doing that here with Trey Mullins. With the third overall selection, then, the New York Rail are selecting Dio Brando. And Dio Brando, like you mentioned earlier, a very, very established player agency. I think it's like 2.5 MVPs in a row there previously.
Yeah.
And finals MVPs, boot, and high TP total, possibly the highest, if I remember correctly, of this draft class. So yeah, Dio Brando, a shooting guard / power forward player out of the Jurupa Valley Jackals. We've been talking a lot about New York recently on this broadcast, as they've been selecting tons and tons of players. How does Brando fit in there? The positions look solid to their plans, but other than that, what's new with New York then?
It's still interesting because New York still has a ton of guys rostered, ton of guys still getting better and growing. It's honestly hard to judge which positions Brando will end up playing. Will it be more of a shooting guard situation, more of a power forward situation? I'm guessing that remains to be seen based on how the rest of the prospects grow. But I could see him more as a shooting guard with the big man positions more or less secure there with Campbell and Devon. But like, honestly, what a player, right? 43 points per game, 60% true shooting. What a guy. Seems to have nearly abandoned his humanity for SBA basketball play. I'm sure this will be a great guy, and New York would be very, very foolish not to take full advantage of his talents.
Is this player attribute radial correct? Because it looks like it could be correct, but it also looks like a really like devilish concoction there.
It is in fact correct.
Yes. All right. So that'll be awesome to see Dio Brando already take the SBA, hopefully by storm. Hopefully there's enough minutes to go by in the first season of his career, and New York will be a much more interesting team now, all of a sudden, with the hype of Good Left Undone coming behind them. All right. Then, before we get to the fourth overall selection, we have another trade here. It's Trevelyan and Pagano and the fourth overall selection going to the Pittsburgh Ironmen. So another guard to the Pittsburgh core. And Ravens are receiving a very saucy Pittsburgh first overall pick. So I'm sure we'll be talking about Houston again 6 weeks from now. But what do you think of this trade then? Due to extenuating circumstance, Pagano will not be improving, but the fourth overall pick player. There's a lot of good players still on the board, of course.
I think it's a pretty spicy trade, actually. And Houston was in a spot where they could have taken a new guy, but I'm not sure why would they really, because they need to move someone soon anyways. Normally, if not for certain circumstances as you mentioned, this would be a pretty bad trade for Houston, honestly, in my opinion. But considering Pagano being at the top of where he'll be, I think I see this as a sign of Houston having something in the oven to fill out the roster that they have at the moment. Maybe a free agent signing or something like that. I think Pittsburgh is very satisfied with what they're getting. They get to put that fourth guy next to McBride, Lopez, and Niskanen. I'm excited to see who they pick.
Yeah, with the first and fourth overall selections here, Pittsburgh could even select the best player in this draft. Like, obviously, it could be a given with the first overall pick, but now they have another chance at that. And it's no surprise. Like, it's surprisingly balanced for a trade, but it's all a result of Houston being here once again, because they can keeps getting kicked down the road further and further. And next off season, the currently reigning champions will have another decision to make with a draft pick. And let's see who the Pittsburgh Ironmen are selecting then. And it will be Yaksa. Is it Yaksa or Jaksa?
I have no clue.
I think at least for surnames in Slovenian, it's just y. So first names could also be y. So Jaksa Bozo will be going with Jaksa Bozo. Bozo is much more fun, but Schwein's not really up. Either way. A power forward / center player, 6'11" from the Quad Cities Asylum. Strong interior player already. 25 points, 22 rebounds almost. What's this then for Pittsburgh? Is the Infinity Gauntlet soon to be complete, or is this just are these the gems to polish into your Infinity Gauntlet, do you think?
I think it certainly looks like it. Getting Bozo, Points player, Pittsburgh now has two great big men with Bonnie McBride and Bozo, ready to take that twin tower approach, with two users who've had a run through the league, are now on their second or next players, ready to take what they've learned. And if I know anything about the SBA, as I know a lot of the times with these promising somewhat younger users, the second player is a beast to look out for. And I think these two could be very interesting, especially if the GM continues to be smart with picking the right support players like they have with Lopez. And I guess we'll see with what happens with Niskanen.
Yeah, I think this is sort of reminiscent of what we talked with Boston there for a little bit with Steve Austin and America Flags, but the roles are sort of reversed, where this is more natural, where you have the strong interior core and then you have supporting players around them instead of supporting players starting from the inside and then maybe growing from there. But I think there's if all goes right, Pittsburgh will be very good in a short amount of time, and also that might mean that it's going to be imminent, but the Houston pick will also be devalued the better they play. So it's all on them to make themselves the real winners of the previous trade there to get the 4th overall pick. So enjoyed that really much. For the 5th overall selection, we're gonna have Ray LaFleur heading to the Oklahoma City Rampage. Now I'm sorry for any viewers who might know Ray LaFleur as a name, but there's a real basketball player picture here. No worries. We'll take a look at Ray nonetheless. Point guard / shooting guard player. Straight to the draft player, I think. Not sure I remember. Well, obviously the screenshot here would indicate that, but I don't also remember LaFleur playing last season in the SBDL. The Oklahoma City Rampage then starting their maneuvering in this draft here. Do you think LaFleur, be it as it may, the player build, would fit their future developments?
I think it's just the right pick. The Rampage are desperately in need of a guard ready to play and start right now, and LaFleur is exactly that type of guy. Just look at this attribute chart. He's the prototypical PG. He knows what he's good at. He does it well. He's gonna keep doing it well while he grows and maybe expands his game into other directions. I think he will have a lot of fun and a lot of success playing in OKC, especially alongside such prolific scorers like Cobra Kappa with buckets and Redding. It's just a point guard passer's dream come true.
Yeah, and given like 85 3-point shot, it's like Tobias Garrett would have never left. Obviously, it's a hyperbole. Tobias Garrett was a really fine player even in his old age, but for a first-year player to sort of already maybe to start filling that the void left behind, that's a very, very strong endorsement of their talents. Then for the always gotta make one of those jokes. For the 6th overall pick, before the 6th overall pick, we're gonna have another trade here. The Miami Vice are receiving the 6th overall pick from the Rampage, so the Rampage will not be picking twice in a row there, but the Rampage are going to receive Juha Järvinen, or I guess it says Järvinen, so we're gonna go with Järvinen. Järvinen, a very celebrated player coming out of the SBDL some time ago, and didn't put a foot wrong with the Vice so far, but with Lemors moving away from GMing duties in Miami, I guess it's sort of suitable to trade away his GM player, more as compared to if Lemors was still the general manager. What do you think about this trade for both sides?
I think it's surprisingly great value for the 6th pick.
Yeah.
Juha is just a great guy. He's a great defensive player. He's only year 6. I believe he's also on contract till year 7. So it's just, incredible value considering what teams usually get when the picks.
Yeah. We're still here.
Miami evidently wants to go a little younger, which is, a fair goal if you want to do that. I think there may have been maybe just a little bit of a desire from Järvinen to go somewhere else. I don't know. We'll see. It remains to be seen what they pick and what they get for that 6th pick. I think that's the big thing in this pick.
Yeah, and Järvinen is supposedly obviously a very good fit almost anywhere, but in terms of what we've been talking about Oklahoma City now after the last offseason, or last season 76 entry draft, if not unhappy with the role or the team performance, it should be a fantastic fit regardless.
Yep.
So the 6th overall pick goes to the Miami Vice, and they are selecting James McCauliflower. Now this is a player I have no idea what to expect about, since it He's a straight to the draft player, but not so good 88 is managing this young career. Power forward slash center player, 6'11", all the normal stuff there. What's the play here for Miami? A big man for them should be good, right?
It's extremely hard to judge with these straight to the draft players, but they do need a big man. They only have Max Holder, I believe. So I guess that's the goal here. I'm assuming the GM is very high on McCauliflower from the talks that they've had. Not So Good Agency is, unlike its name, quite good actually. The Tuckers were great players, both the senior and the junior. Could be a great pick. It could be an okay pick. Is it worth Jarvinen? We'll see in 5 seasons.
Yeah. It's really difficult to say. At face value, of course, it's not worth a defensive player of the year type of player.
Yeah.
Who could be like a 5-time defensive player of the year. But who knows, maybe McCauliflower is going to be a 5-time defensive player of the year, or even a 5-time offensive player of the year, or even a 5-time most valuable player. That's really unlikely based on 50 seasons of trends, but it could happen. Surely it could. Then for the 7th overall pick, it's also moving to Toronto then. The Charlotte Aviators are receiving Obi Meka out of Charlotte, or out of Toronto, and Toronto are receiving the next pick. What compared to the value offered there for the 6th overall pick there? What's this?
Honestly, I have no clue. I'm not sure on this one. I'm just really not sure on this one. Charlotte, I think, is just giving their own pick not to get salary. I think that's what's happening here, but I'm really surprised they couldn't get something more valuable out of this. Like we've seen right above us, pick 6, which is apparently worth a defensive player of the year type guy, and for the 7th now we're getting a filler, which is surprising. But I mean, maybe Charlotte has something ready to just kind of needs to not take a salary desperately. Also, a newly minted GM, so maybe there was less time to work it out.
Yeah, entirely possible. And Toronto are in this weird situation where they could use new players, but also they don't necessarily have all that much playing time on offer. But let's see who they will be selecting then. On screen there is it says still Miami Vice instead of McCauliflower. I guess I missed another one then. Either way, the 7th overall selection, the Toronto Thunderbirds are selecting Castor Leo. Hopefully that's somewhere in the ballpark of the pronunciation. Allegiance player, played for the Beaumont Barons last season. 6'7", small forward / shooting guard player. This is a position the Toronto Thunderbirds already have maybe 3 eligible players already, with Fox Daniels, Iwakiri, and Ivanov. I think that's right. Yeah. So will this be more for the future? Stick Leo to the bench for a year and see what comes out of the other sort of mixed guard players? Or what do you think? Since Leo's 430 TP is already, that's middle of the road for the Toronto Thunderbirds team, even his youthful age.
I like this player. I think he has a lot of potential to grow into something more. And at the moment, he is already primed to be okay at defense and sink some threes from positions where you don't always expect that. At shooting guard, small forward more so, but usually shooting guards are very high volume type of guys. So it's sometimes valuable to have a shooting guard who is not so much of a ball hog. I'm not sure if Toronto is the place for him. I just don't know what Toronto is planning at the moment. They have so many players at these positions. Someone is gonna have to go, you know. With Castor, then they have 7 guys, and like 4 of them are guard, as he mentioned. I think Castor is an interesting player. I think unless Toronto makes some moves, they may be losing him very quickly for another team to grab him in free agency or in a trade if he's more into that.
Do you think there's a team that should have made a move for Leo instead? Like this seems like something the Houston Ravens could have been playing on, unless they have that sort of a bigger fish to fry you mentioned earlier.
I think there's a lot of teams that could have used a guy like Castor.
Yeah.
He's not expensive at the moment. He's good to slot in and just kind of play ball, do his stuff, play defense, shoot some threes. And if you want him to, you can get him to grow into something more if you need it. It's just a weird trade and a weird pick.
Yeah. Hope for all the best, of course. Toronto Thunderbirds have a lot of those young players, as mentioned, and Leo, obviously, another one of them. So I wish them a lot of success, but there's definitely bound to be a logjam soon there on the Toronto side of things. Moving on to the 8th overall pick, we have new information there out of Prowler's land. Victor Wilches the 6th is going to the Prowlers with the 8th overall pick. This seems like a blockbuster, all things considered. Ezekiel Bridges the 3rd and Philadelphia's 1st overall pick going Corsairs' way there. Is this a blockbuster, or is this more of a muted thing, like swapping 2 good players one another and 2 sort of middling picks for one another?
I don't agree. I think San Diego is the clear winner here, which is not something we say often.
Yes, sir.
I mean, Victor Wilches, great player, but he's old. He's year 9.
Yeah, he'll be done soon.
Yeah, Ezekiel Bridges III is year 5. He's a great shooting guard. He's from Zeke's agency, which has historically made great players. I do not understand this trade unless Ezekiel wanted out. I think like that's the only scenario in which this makes much sense. Because what is Philadelphia doing? Do they want veterans to win now, or do they want picks to grow into something more? Like, it's a weird move.
Yeah. Only clear explanation I would have is that the free agency period is soon, later today, gonna find some real blockbusters more. This just puts it into more perspective looking at the draft board currently, with Charlotte giving their 7th overall pick for a filler and being sandwiched between 2 sort of massive trades there. This is inefficiency on some team's part for sure. Like getting Castor Leo for that sort of price, it's gonna be a steal for the Thunderbirds, I think, eventually.
Yeah.
Then with the 8th overall selection, the Philadelphia Prowlers are selecting Austin Evermore. It's no more Nevermore, it's still Evermore. Or what? I suppose that's sort of a poetic thing there. Of the anti-player agency, a shooting guard / small forward, Schmishmash, Schmixfoot 7, a strong, capable offensive player who already has a lot of talent invested into the stealing attribute and was one of the best players in the SBDL this past season. What do you think about then complementing Victor Wilches and the rest with this sort of player here?
Well, this just makes me even more confused
Yeah, it
because
seems like Wilches is going just to retire in Philadelphia.
yeah, Austin Evermore, great guy, but you've just traded away a great wing scorer who is closer to that peak level, and now you're picking a rookie, and at the same time you got a
Another
veteran
wing scorer.
who also does the
Yeah,
same thing.
yeah, yeah.
So what is happening here? I'm excited to see what Evermore does. Like, he's a great guy. He has a lot of promise. But once again, I'm not sure if Philadelphia is the place where he will end up being, or if it's a place where Wilches will end up playing for a long time, because it's a busy team at the moment, quite busy.
Yeah. Maybe our questions will be answered soon enough. Maybe later today, or maybe later even in this draft presentation here. But we'll move on to the 9th overall selection. The St. Louis Battalion are selecting Akinori Yasuoka from Japan, presumably, but also from the AW13 player agency, a 7'1", grown to be a staple of the Andrew Warren player agencies. Of course, a center player at a very high TP number as well of 475, but straight to the draft player. So a lot of unknowns there regarding it. To me, it seems like St. Louis are just going safe, doing the clean, a bit of work there, no fancying around with trades, and just picking the best player available there possibly. What do you think?
I think it's a neat pick. You know, it's a big man. Those have shown a lot of success in this league. He obviously won't be starting because the starting five is pretty much set for the battalion. But he could be. I mean, obviously, we don't know what he's doing with his. We don't know because he's a straight to the draft player. But in the future, he could end up in a couple of seasons pairing nicely alongside Sailor Moon and Tristan Aitas, as well as Matt Thomas third. You know, when Coffee and Mickey McBride end up retiring or whatever. So I think the battalion is in a good place. You know, they know what they're doing. They have a plan, and they're executing that plan. I think it's a good pick.
Yeah, sticking to the simple and the obvious stuff sometimes is worth much more than doing all the so-called clever machinations outside of just drafting one player, and Yasuoka just seems to fit that bill right there, as you mentioned. Then we have another trade to announce, a couple of banned players. Yeah, like we mentioned earlier, a lot of extenuating circumstances there earlier. If you're not aware of it, there's been a couple of bannings, a couple of users getting banned for rule breaking. Let's just say rule breaking. You can check out the announcements on sba.today/forums if you wish, but there's two of those players there going from the Philadelphia Prowlers to the Miami Vice alongside the 10th overall pick. And the Prowlers are then receiving Claudio Cesar Cincinnatus and Max Holzer, so that should open a lot of playing time at the Miami Vice front court. But generally, then, what's just your feeling on this trade here? Is 10th overall pick for, let's just say, like 10th overall pick for Holzer and Davidson and Aldous for Cincinnatus as two separate transactions? Does that seem sort of right? Is there a player at 10th that's as valuable as Holzer, in your opinion?
This one is tough not to crack, honestly. It's a big trade. I think, if not for plates issues, obviously, this would have been pretty bad. But considering that Davidson is not going to be improving anytime soon, or ever, probably.
Yeah, likely ever, never.
Yeah, likely ever, never. I think it's okay. I'm still not sure what Philadelphia is trying to do, because they are simultaneously getting a lot of veterans and also getting rookies and young players who are gonna do the same kind of things that the veterans they're getting are doing. Um, but I don't think it's a bad trade on paper. I don't think it's particularly good either. But yeah,
Yeah, I think it gives Miami a great chance to have a sort of a backup center as Davidson, or even a starting center, and then really move on with getting more youth to the team, even though they, in the ostensive starting draft board, they didn't really have a way in. But I think so far it's been Järvinen, Holzer, and Cincinnatus for basically, let's say, for rookies sort of players. It's debatable if it's any good for them. Let's see who they select with the 10th overall pick. It'll be Sean Stanley of the Anteater Tamer player agency from the Thunder Bay Resistance, a 6'10" power forward. That, with McCauliflower, that means they once again have two players to start in the front court positions. But do you think they are content to move on to the season with this roster then?
I mean, I gotta believe so. They've made moves with clear goals in mind. I think Stanley is an interesting pick. He's a fun power forward with some solid fundamentals. He seems to know what he needs to be doing to be getting better. If he keeps on doing those things and growing, getting better, I think that's gonna be a great guy in the future. And I think it's a solid pick.
Yeah. Yeah, so far they still have on roster, I think, players Big Papa Flappa and Dirty Banana.
Dirty Banana.
Yeah. So it's Floppa and Banana, and then Altus, Stanley, McCauliflower, Davidson. Yeah, there's a lot of player moves still to be made if they so wish, or if the players so wish, for sure. Since there's a lot of young, sort of not bad, but very much developing players, and then two like massive star players.
At the moment, it looks like they're in the middle of maybe just getting rid of all the veterans and rebuilding.
Yeah, so the sale is still on very much. With the 11th overall selection, the Charlotte Aviators are picking Jeff Newman. Lumosity fans, point guard / shooting guard, 6'1", played for the Jurupa Valley Jackals last season in the SBDL. The Charlotte Aviators once again featuring here. Jeff Newman is a decent player with a lot of promise and no real faults to his game, I don't think. But still very much a work in process. Do you think he fits the Charlotte Aviators' plans?
I think the Aviators need guards.
Yeah.
So that's a good pick for them. I think he's kind of a low risk but kind of high reward guy. I've had my eye on him in the lower ends of the draft. You know me, I'm not a fan of the jump shooting, but he has some great passing. He hasn't forgotten completely about defense. He's working on his handling. I think he could end up being a really solid piece despite maybe the not so high earning.
Yeah. Just as I mentioned there, Jalen Cross, who you mentioned at the top of the show, still on the board to be selected.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of big hitters to select up next, so let's see if any of them or Jalen caught any of their eyes. Apparently, will be stopped once further. Looks to be a quick one. Mauler swapping their next season's first to a first this season. Milwaukee next season obviously looks to be in very, very tough shape, or well, actually not in tough shape, in very good shape, but tough to play against and tough to get wins from. So their first overall pick is likely going to be lower value than this, don't you think?
I agree, but also, 12 is not some incredible value. Seems to me like Seattle just didn't want to pick. So they took what was offered.
Yeah, I think so. There could have been, like you said before, Jalen Cross still on the board, and there's also
Yeah.
Chibuike Akara, I think. Yes, in fact, Chibuike Akara is who the Milwaukee Maulers will be selecting. So it befell them not to select Jalen Cross here. Akara, a strong defensive center, looks to be a very fitting player for the Milwaukee Maulers, who are still trying to challenge for a SBA Finals berth, possibly even win one. It'll be tough, of course, but do you think Kara is a good player to, as a sort of fifth, sixth man to help them on that quest?
I mean, definitely, he's the kind of guy that a couple of last draft would
May
have
have
been near the
gone top
top.
3, yeah.
Yeah, he's high rebounding, great fouling, great defense.
Great
He's
foul.
quick. I mean,
Yeah,
you
of
know,
course, we all know what you mean, but sounds very funny how you say it.
it does. It
Yeah.
does. I'm sorry. Yeah, but he's just a great guy. He's no slouch with his TP earning. It just really seems to me like the last couple of drafts, most teams have really stocked up on this type of player. So he kind of fell down through the cracks. But I think it's a great pickup for Milwaukee, especially at 12.
Yes, and I'm happy to welcome Keno. I'm sure I've played with Keno in Toronto or whatever before, but I'm happy to welcome Keno to a more serious team this time. Then, with the 13th overall selection, the Mexico City Ocelots are selecting Oswald the Enswald. Very reminiscent of a filler of olden times, but Oswald here is a real player of the Yuosu or Jusu, whatever. Oswald the Enswald, a center slash power forward out of the Louisville Lions. Apologies there for all the laughing, but yes. 23 points per game, 15 rebounds per game last season. Do you think Oswald as a player is the best pick here for the Ocelots to develop for the future, or would you still have liked Jalen Cross here instead?
I think with what the Ocelots have, this is just kind of a safe pick to kind of ride the bench, maybe learn something, hopefully grow into a more valuable guy. Because Oswald ends well. I just got that thing. I'm sorry for laughing.
Right, yes.
He's a he's a classic big man. He scores, he rebounds. If he cleans up his defense a bit, he could be quite valuable. But also, the Ocelots don't really have a need for anything. They kind of have their guys that they're going for with. But Vasilis is your yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't want to try. Is year 8.
And as is O'Malley, yeah.
Yeah, as is O'Malley. So I guess they're just kind of hoping that maybe he fits there right. And I like Jalen Cross. I like his build, but I'm not really sure if he's gonna be good. I just think he's a fun build. So from a GM perspective, I get it.
Yeah, I think Jalen Cross would have been a good pick at almost like any point after the, let's say, 6th pick, or Well, about around the time where Evermore and Tazuoka were selected, like I could have foreseen Cross being selected there as well. But like you said, there's a if you're not confident in what Jalen Cross would have to offer already, it'd be different. But yeah, obviously we are prefacing all of this. Jalen Cross will be the 14th overall selection out of the Toronto Thunderbirds, or to the Toronto Thunderbirds. Sorry for you also for hogging your spotlight with all the Jalen Cross talk there. But here we do have Prince Bynum's player, 24 points per game, nearly 10 assists per game last season in the Asylum. 6'5" shooting guard slash point guard. Revel us with what you enjoy about Jalen Cross's build and what are your hopes for his future, Tomato?
He is a very atypical guard because he goes hard inside the paint, doesn't really take as many jump shots as he probably could be, but he also still passes despite being high into inside, high into jumping. He has no strength, which is weird, but seems fun.
Yes, sir.
And he also, I think he is a fun build. I think he could be a nice Westbrook type of guy if he develops correctly. And like we've seen guards like this have some success, but it's obviously not the typical point guard or even shooting guard kind of build. So I'm just kind of excited to see what happens with him. I'm excited to see where he goes, what he decides to upgrade, and how his SBA career developed.
All right. Shortly then, the Toronto Thunderbirds are ostensibly now finishing up their draft with a couple of players or a bunch of players. Do you think their team is now more promising than where they had been going into the draft? Do you like their picks so far?
I still don't get Toronto. I really don't. They made some good moves getting the pick at 7th. They pick, I think it's fair to call Jalen a high risk, high reward type of guy. But like, where do they fit? Just where do you fit them in this team? There's so much going on. You have to make a decision at some point, and that point is kind of now. It kind of was last season. Just like commit.
Yeah, but sometimes if you have a mutual understanding, I guess just hoarding a lot of talent and then figuring out what's what after, maybe even when their contracts are expiring, can be a way to go about it. It just takes a lot of courage and takes a lot of trust, and hopefully we'll be speaking of much more certain terms, or in much more certain terms about the Thunderbirds in the future. With the 15th overall selection, the San Diego Corsairs are selecting Orlando Richter. Orlando Richter is a filler shooting guard slash center going to the Corsairs, courtesy of their general manager Thierry. We'll spend no more time on Richter, but we'll be moving on to the 16th overall selection, who is Blaine Porter, also a filler. Happy accident there with the development or whatever. Activity check made Blaine Porter go to 253 TP. That will of course not likely stand to his pro career, but the Vancouver Wolverines shore up their really end of the bench depth there with Porter, hopefully capable of full 8 years in the Canadian West Pacific. Yes, it's just the Pacific. Then at 17th overall selection, we have a very offensive player name, so shield your ears if you have children listening. It's Yo Mama is Sofat. That's an interesting Egyptian sort of surname there, maybe of ancient royalty. Yo Mama also a filler player, so aside from the other joke there, we'll spend no much more time on them. Then at the 18th overall selection, the Mexico City Ocelots are selecting Marvin Meadows, another filler, played for the Quad Cities Asylum. But here are the draft results, or actually, we do have some more trades to send you guys off with. Then the Philadelphia Prowlers are receiving from the Nightmare Malone Freeman. And the Nightmare are getting in exchange Pax Wong, funny guy that one, Austin Evermore, and next season's Las Vegas Jokers first overall pick. There could be a lot of latent value in the Jokers first pick next season if things go any sort of more funny there, with Malik Washington, of course, retiring. But yeah, what's your immediate thoughts on this transaction here, Tomato?
Well, it seems to me like the Austin Evermore pick for Philly kind of makes sense now. They just wanted to move him. And it seems to me like the Prowlers are fully committing to getting that veteran lineup and trying to compete. Yeah, if that's what they're going for, I'm not sure if these are the players that will win them a ring, but they could be an interesting team. I think cohesion will be a problem for them. I think the Nightmare are pretty happy with this. Evermore is a nice pick, and there's, as you've mentioned, there's some possible value in the next season's LVJ pick. One thing is for sure, Philly has been busy this offseason, like very busy.
Yes, a lot of interesting moves here, and seems like any time someone called them about a trade, they were ready to deal. Of course, Malone Freeman, my player. All I'll say about the ring and championship and success possibilities is that I'll do my best to stay at 800 TPE spent and be making fair use of the regression bank for the rest of my days. So it's on Wilches and the other guys to make do. Speaking of Wilches, the Wilches experience in Philadelphia is now over. Las Vegas Rush are trading Jordan Hatfield and Johnny Tsunami and the 19th overall pick to the Prowlers, and the Prowlers are sending in exchange Johnny Wick and Victor Wilches the 6th or 4th. I called him the 6th earlier. Apologies, Victor. Yeah, there was a lot of murmurs already about possible trades for Jordan Hatfield. But now that it's here, are you going back on your word from the previous trade screen, or do you think it's still sort of in line with yeah?
Apparently, I'm kind of full of shit because Will just left already. But Philly legend.
Yes,
I think it still kind of fits. I feel it still kind of fits with Hatfield and Tsunami being these, just getting. It's a weird trade. I don't get Philly. There's a lot happening. I've been lost in the sauce. They had like 5 trades just to Shaft alone.
Yeah. But they got competent players. They gave away competent players, but it's not all that unfair. It's just very funny how I guess the deal for Los Angeles developed much later than what they would have liked. Because ahead of the Evermore pick, I guess they could have made this trade already and had Freeman and Evermore, maybe? I don't know. Interesting. The Prowlers are set to be a very, very interesting, like I said, bunch next season. Who's gonna get the most shine? Will the Los Angeles Rush once again compete for a SBA final spot or even a championship? I think that's always very likely with them, but will it actually prove fruitful? We'll see next season. Of this past season, we'll be finishing it off with this one. The entire full draft board here, from Roope Niskanen to Marvin Meadows with the 2 final pick. Excuse the Los Angeles Rush text there, of course, as you might have seen on the previous screen. The 19th pick is headed to the Prowlers. But the 2 players, or there's some few players remaining, they'll be posted later if they will be selected, if at all. But yeah, starting from Roope Niskanen all the way to Marvin Meadows so far. There's a lot of movement here that's not captured in the screen with the amount of trades that we got through, but in terms of just the draft and prospects, do you think Pittsburgh are in the top spot in the sort of youth rankings now with their 1 and 4 selections of Niskanen and Boso respectively?
Depending on how Niskanen ends up developing, I think they are. I think they have one of the most promising young cores in the league right now.
Yes, and then I was speaking earlier about the 7, 8, 9, 10 range. There's a lot of talented players there, but who do you think got the best deal of their sort of mid to high draft selections here?
I mean, it has to be Castro Leo, if only because of how little it cost Toronto to get him.
Yes.
Despite the fit issues.
Yeah.
But if it's just players, I think Yasuoka, being a straight to the draft player, has very high potential to end up outgrowing his pick number.
Alright, then before we go, a quick fun question here for you. Who is the most likely future Hall of Famer in this SBA draft class of season 77?
Dio Brando. It's just, yeah, that's the answer. I'm sorry. Glow is too good at making his players. He's pretty much guaranteed to. I would be very surprised if Dio Brando ends up being a flop. I think I have high hopes for Yax Bozo. And just personally, I really hope Jalen Cross blows up.
Yes, we'll all be hoping for it, and none more than the Toronto Thunderbirds fans. Yes, I think I'm not going to answer my own question and leave that to the viewer to answer in their draft or post-draft point tasks. Make sure to do all that if you're here for the draft presentation, and make sure to leave a 5-star review for SBA. Well, yeah, that's not a real thing. We'll be done for today. Looking forward to reading all the articles and looking forward to the short free agent period that's bound to come after a long Christmas holiday break and a Wednesday draft presentation. Do you have any closing words there for us, Tomato?
I hope you guys had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
And so do I. Thank you everyone for watching, and see you again, if not earlier, than next season with the season 78